and welcome to another episode of Pause for Payments. My name is Kristy Duncan, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Donna Kinoshita, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Symcor. Donna is based in Toronto. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Kristy. Always great to see you. Thanks for making the time.
Delighted. In today's competitive market, new technology, innovative fintech solutions, and consumers' expectations all play a big part in driving innovation in the payments market. Today, we're going to talk about the role of a Chief Strategy Officer and how that role works to define the strategy of an organization and why it is so vital given the incredible change we see today. So I'm really excited about this conversation. Donna, let's get started.
Perfect.
So Donna, you've got this fantastic career journey now as Chief Strategy Officer at Symcor, Canada's leading check processor. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. I'll try and keep it a little bit more concise than the very long journey, but it's been a great journey so far. And I'll just add to begin with, I appreciate you saying, Canada's largest check processor, but we do so much more. But I think we'll talk a little bit about more of that later. If I kind of go all the way back and think about where I started, and I think it's important to start there because it really grounded my whole career in payments. Started kind of that whole thinking train in terms of payments and technology. Started with the TD Bank, right in the retail banking system. Nothing like learning core banking right in the trenches, and it was fabulous because you got that real appreciation for the consumer, for the retail consumer. And I also worked in the commercial banking sector as well. So really got that flavor of small business needs, commercial banking needs. But the reason I think fondly back to that time is it really gave me that great grounding in what core banking is all about. And so, when you fast forward to, as you've said, Chief Strategy Officer, I have those grassroots and how far this industry has come and all the changes that have happened and how quickly, most recently, they have happened. But, in terms of my career, I got to think about, I was fortunate to have really great mentors and coaches along the way. You always need great supporters. I've had great teams all along the way. I would say what's worked for me is I was very purposeful in all of my choices in my career path. So after TD, I went to Amex. At the time, it wasn't Amex Bank of Canada quite yet. It was American Express. And so very fortunate to work on the licensing team and obtaining the Amex Bank of Canada bank license. Such a fun time, if you can imagine at that time, really creating a new company within a company, setting up the first branch of Amex Bank of Canada, setting up the first DDA system, hard to imagine even now, right? And how we might do it differently today than we did it back then. But really got me exposed to operations. So I ran a piece of the FinOps area, really got good grounding again. And it kind of, I'm going to share these because it builds on how I ended up where I am today and getting a very well-rounded viewpoint, but getting pretty deep in some key core functional areas. So got my grounding in ops there, went to CIBC to try my hand at sales in a B2B environment. And that's where I landed in the treasury management area. Treasury management, global payments. I have to say CIBC was very good to me in my career path. Really fabulous mentors there who still I seek their advice today. And in that whole B2B, ran sales, product management, was able to get a taste of new product development, coupled with technology was really coming to the forefront then. And that's, I think, where I decided the sweet spot was that coupling of payments and technology. So, my ambition had always been to be a GM of a line of business. And so that's where you need that operations, sales, product, and all of that. Wanted to try my hand in a smaller startup. So having come through the career path of big corporate, big banks, and if you can think of the dot-com boom and all the sexiness with the small tech ups. So went to a smaller consulting firm, had a wonderful role as a GM role. We also did business in the US. It was in the e-procurement space. So again, a little bit of that technology flavor. And wanted to kind of stretch myself even more. And again, this plays into the, what I think helped me along my career is that constant stretching and morphing and reinventing that I think is so critical, even more so maybe today in young folks starting their careers. You've got to be prepared to be scared every day, to stretch yourself every day. So, I've often told folks I'm very logical. One side of the brain works well, not so much on the creative side. Really wanted to try that muscle out. And so had the opportunity to work for Margaret Atwood in her technology startup company. And I thought, wow, that's a great way to kind of stretch that creative side. Fabulous lady. I can't tell you how creative and what a soothsayer she turned out to be. Well, you can see in her writing, but she had started a technology company, and what a fabulous opportunity that was for me. Again, kind of like in a COO GM role, so seeing all facets of the business, but in a very small kind of nimble, tech startup environment. Got to meet Jack Dorsey when he had his prototype. It was 2 weeks old. And he pulled it out of his pocket, and it was the first square device that he said he had been tinkering in his garage making. But
fantastic.
Yeah, you know what? When you see, and coming from the payments world, and coming from the banks, and sitting and seeing this, my colleagues were obviously more on the creative side, on the technology side, and they were kind of, oh, that's cool. But for me, at that moment in time, seeing this little dongle that he said anybody got a phone and plugging it into the phone, you could immediately see how it was going to revolutionize merchant payments. And so, again, that very long segue into that chief strategy role of imagining the art of the possible, reimagining the current business. MasterCard came along and gave me that prime opportunity of marrying payments and technology in a more commercialized manner. Again, great mentorship there. I can't say enough good things about MasterCard. And I'm so glad to see Sasha heading up MasterCard Canada today. She is one of those mentors that I look fondly and still seek advice from. And then Symcor came along, and in terms of my ambitions and my career path and where I felt my strengths were, it was an opportunity to make a difference, and make a difference on a bigger scale, make a difference in the market. But it was always the path was very purposeful. There was a endpoint vision in mind, and you kind of just, kept moving along and stretching oneself and trying to gain more experiences. So long-winded answer.
Fantastic. Well, so it sounds like a great path that you were able to, you had these foundational roles at TD Bank that gave you some really good foundational knowledge and understanding of not only customers, but core banking, and then progressed through Amex, CIBC, MasterCard, and now here you are today. So Donna, for the rising stars who are listening today, can you describe what is it exactly that a chief strategy officer does? What fills your days?
On top of the chief bottle washer. So you pretty much, try and understand the market. You try and understand your customers' needs. You try and anticipate what their nascent needs are going to be in the future. And I have to say, it is a fabulous opportunity. It's a great job. So I don't just have the strategy office. I've got product management and product development under my purview, as well as the sales and marketing organization. which really does make sense when you roll it up into getting a really good lens of what does the landscape look like, what does the environment look like, and what are the changes that are coming into play that are going to affect that. And so, I think my role as Chief Strategy Officer is to try and envision where the puck is going to, and to help the organization at the very least, move lock and step. So we're always meeting that puck, or at best getting a little bit ahead, but not too far. So timing is everything. So if you can imagine, in this past year, you and I were just chatting earlier about this past year, and every organization and the changes that are happening, the consumer behaviors that are changing and happening. It was funny because I had a recent conversation with our agency who does some of our recruiting for us. And he said the number one skill set and role that he's been asked to search for right now is Chief Strategy Officer. Because the world has changed for so many organizations. Everything that we thought was going to happen 7 to 10 years out has now just been advanced and accelerated. I know it's an overused term, but really, I think many of us believe what we thought was happening 10 years out is now probably in the 3 to 5 year horizon, if not sooner. And so, really to kind of quickly assess what's happening and how quickly it's happening, and what we can do to help our customers in that journey, and all of the craziness going on.
Well, that's what keeps it exciting, is all the change, especially as the market is so dynamic. And in the last year, as you say, I've heard this said many times that, 5 years of innovation happened in 5 weeks or 5 months, and it's just accelerated so quickly. But so it makes it difficult to imagine what's coming down the pipe, and can this pace of change continue? So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Symcor. And I was around way back in the days when the 3 banks got together and looked for the name that translated to both English and French, and started this, shared service organization, if you will, to process checks. And clearly that was, a long time ago. And yet in every market in the world, pretty much checks are on the decline, especially with this pandemic. And I'm sure you know what the numbers are. I don't see them day to day, but some countries don't even use checks anymore, if you can imagine. It's hard for us to imagine. So as Chief Strategy Officer, how do you think Symcor is going to navigate the next 5 years?
Yeah, listen, it's a great question, and a very relevant question. As I was just saying earlier, every organization, I think, is going through a strategy refresh. And if they're not, they should be. Happily, we were already well underway in that regard, partially for some of the statements that you've made. Some of our historical business we know is on the decline. In fact, we actually propagate it because our foremost premise is, doing what's right for the market. And the right thing for the market is to move checks to images. And so what can we do to help that? I mean, we were at the forefront, a lot of that whole image transformation in the check processing. It's the right thing to do. And so when we take a step back and look at, okay, across all facets of our business, so what many folks don't know is all the other things we have historically done outside of check processing. It's if you will, our whole communications line of business, which provides, I would say, the majority in the Canadian market for all of the B2C customer as it relates to statements, invoices, bills. So the easiest way is if you get your bank statement today, whether in print or whether on the web portals you presented, it probably was rendered by us. Many of your large corporate bills. So, if when we used to happily drive on the Highway 407, when we could go out, you'd receive your statement from 407. That would be from us. And many of the large utility companies, insurance companies as well. We also have our line of service Core IQ that provides fraud services as a consortium to the financial services market. So when you take a step back and you look at all of that breadth and depth that we serve the market with, what are the core competencies in there that will take us into the future and provide future services? You know, so top of the list, safety and security, never more important than it is today when you look at all the cyber breaches. But I think, you know, when you think about our ownership base and you think about our customer base and the regulated environments that they operate in, we're pretty much like Fort Knox as it comes to security, safety, whether it be the data, whether it be the transmissions, whether it be the physical premises. When you look at all of our management processes and our ability to continue to operate, and ironically, this past year has proven that out, and second to none in terms of across Canada, all of our processing sites, day in, day out, never missed a beat, despite lockdowns, red zones, gray zones, what will you have it? Our folks came in and day out to make sure the critical work all got processed with minimal or no interruptions. And so it's all of that, the ability to count on us in a safe, secure environment. And then the actual what do we do when you think about it, it's just transporting data from point A to point B in a really secure exchange. And so you can imagine how that can be applied to some of the future state needs that the market has going forward. Things like open banking, things like bill consolidation, things like B2B, you know, real secure connections, but real usage of the RTR that will be forthcoming. So how do we, you know, help corporates in terms of realizing the benefits of that RTR and all of the rich data that's going to flow with it in a secure data exchange, if you will, between organizations. So planting seeds on a couple of things that we believe we can really help the market going forward.
Well, that sounds really, really exciting, Donna. I have to say, Symcor has always enjoyed this very unique position in the market, being owned by some of the major banks, but therefore trusted as well. And as you talk about security and fraud management and, you know, secure data transmission, that trusted position is very, very valuable, and it can open a lot of doors as we migrate into this new world of open banking and real-time payments and fantastic data opportunities.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm glad you touched on that, because the trust for us it means so much. It's not just trusted in the sense of, you know, you're safe and secure, but we don't take that trust lightly, because the other key component is our customers know we are not going to do anything foolish with their data. So yeah, we're going to keep it safe and secure, but we're not going to use it for our own good. We're not going to misuse it or improperly use it for the better of our own. You know, our core vision and mission statement circles around what we can do for the common good of the market. And so we really embrace that trust factor of the market trusts us, we will not inappropriately use their data.
Well, that's a very hot topic these days, and a good position to be in, though. So that's great, Donna. I want to switch topics completely and talk about your recent recognition by the Globe and Mail newspaper, the leading newspaper here in Canada, where they recognize you as one of Canada's 50 best executives. That's a pretty impressive recognition, Donna. Can you share with the audience, how do you think your name made it to the top of that very prestigious list? And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, listen, I'm very honored, completely surprised. The easy answer to your question is I haven't got a clue. Listen, it is this market has a bunch of fabulous people. Many of my colleagues that I've worked with long, many of my mentors, I'm always impressed by the caliber of executives that we have in Canada. So I really honestly don't have a clue. I'm very thankful. And what I will say is I believe it's my team. I'm very fortunate to have a fabulous team who day in and day out continue to surprise and delight me and our customers. Our executive team here is second to none. I can't say how much I enjoy working with each and every one of them. So I'm very fortunate. I think, perhaps that whole, they all make me look really good. We have a saying here at Symcor, because there's some tough stuff that we have to, get done. Nothing good ever comes easy, but whenever we get a great accomplishment, our favorite saying is it takes a village, because it really isn't just one person or a couple of people. It's the organization rallying around a common goal. And so that's all I can say to perhaps how it happened is it took a village.
Well, that's fantastic. And that collaboration and cooperation is so key for us in financial services here, because as you say, it's not just one organization that delivers a service. They rely on the other banks and the networks and the regulators and the processors in the background to make it all come together for the customer.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. To close, I have a question that I ask all the people, all the amazing women that I speak to on Positive Payments. And I'm going to ask you too, can you share with us, Donna, some career advice that you would perhaps give to your 30-year-old self?
Good question. So I would say I've been lucky enough that big picture, everybody makes their little mistakes along the way, but I would say big picture on the big rocks, I have no regrets. And so my advice to a younger self or folks just starting out on their careers is be decisive about things, have a vision, envision where you want to be. I'm a big believer in setting, at one point it was 3-year goals. Now I got 5-year goals. And 5-year vision of yourself, a complete vision, not just in your career, but in your life. Because I'm also a believer in, I know there could be a lot of debate around this, but I don't believe you can have it all at the same time. You can have it all in varying times, but it's always going to be a push and pull, a give and take at any point in your life. And so that's why I believe every 5 years doing a reiteration of, where do I envision myself holistically, personal as well as business. And I'm a big believer in the no regrets, treat people as you would like to be treated. I got another little personal rule of what goes around comes around. So you want to make sure you're treating everybody respectfully and as respectfully as you want to be treated. And just constantly look to learn and stretch and challenge yourself, and be a little scared at times. It's okay.
I like that. Well, it's true. If we don't challenge ourselves and do that continuous learning, then we end up getting kind of stuck where we are, and you lose the opportunity for personal growth, either in our careers or in our personal lives. I think getting out of our comfort zone is really instructive, and that's how you grow.
So true.
And you've done that clearly so many times in your career. I love that, going to work for Market Atwood, getting you out of your very technical side.
Totally out of my comfort zone, but learned so much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great opportunity. Donna, this has been a fabulous discussion. Thank you so much. I now know so much more about Symcor and Chief Strategy Officer roles, and skate to where the puck is going, to use that famous Wayne Gretzky quote. But it certainly applies here. And I'm always happy to quote a famous Canadian, but especially in a business context, because people don't always think of it that way. So that's a nice way to frame it. Thank you. And the whole concept of a strategy refresh, you're absolutely right. If somebody, any organization is not doing a strategy refresh at this point, then it's time to kick that up and get that happening. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your career insights. I'm absolutely in agreement that having that 3 to 5 year vision with some goals is important, because if you don't have the map, you won't ever get there. It's true. So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you, Kristy. Really appreciate it.
It's been a great discussion. So thanks everybody for listening, and I encourage you to join us online for the many other Pause for Payments webinars that we host with inspirational leaders like Donna around the global world of payments.